You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 145 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With me, as always, is Jessica Szilagyi, writer, journalist.
Hello.
And as promised a couple weeks ago, just to dumb everything down, we're bringing back Matt Lowe.
How's it going?
Glad to have you back.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Like I don't talk to you 5 times a week.
Right. I don't talk to Jessica 5 days a week, though.
No.
5 times a week.
No. But we did have a good show while Dave was gone.
I thought so. It was fun.
Well, yeah, it was certainly better without me.
No,
Right.
You're the host. We talked about that before the show. I was like, I hate hosting, and we know Matt can't, so. Matt
won't.
The outline.
Matt won't read.
Yeah.
I read today.
Did. Well, this show was your idea. I mean, it's your fault that we're about to have this discussion.
Right.
Before we get into that, we want to mention Big Daddy Unlimited, the sponsor for the show. Big Daddy Unlimited is your source for outdoor gear, guns, silencers, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns, accessories, flashlights, magazines, ammo whenever it's available. It is a membership club. It is direct to you. If you buy a firearm, you put in your FFL, your Federal Firearms License Holder, your local gun store, and most likely when you start typing it in, it will populate with the address and their number. It'll ship to the store. You go out, fill out your 4473, and walk out with your firearm. So big thanks to Big Daddy Unlimited. So a couple weeks ago, when I was decided to ride the storm out in Marathon, Florida.
You were overseeing the hurricane.
Yeah, I was overseeing the hurricane, yes. Matt decided to start an argument with 2 minutes left in the show, as if he has never been on the show before.
And if I hadn't teed him off, I mean, I literally told him, I'm like, we got to stay on topic. I'm not going to know how to end this show, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, okay, I totally agree. And then he's like, well, now that I think of it, we should rewrite the Constitution. I'm like, hold on. Pump the brakes, buddy.
So now that everybody has stuffed themselves on Thanksgiving turkey, we're going to allow you to purge by listening to us talk about rewriting the Constitution. Matthew, give us your premise again.
Well, I don't know that it was my premise. I just made the comment that Jefferson was an advocate of rewriting the Constitution every 20 years. And I happen to agree with it. Because to sum it up like real nicely and put a little bow on it for you, it's based in the idea that one generation should not have to live under the law of the previous generation.
All right.
So you agree with that?
I do. I just think of all the stuff that's out there right now that we could get rid of.
But I agree with the initial premise, like the foundations. From generations ago.
Well, I mean,
now,
you could keep some of that in if you liked it.
Look how stupid everybody is, though, now.
I mean, were they? I don't know. It's kind of a like I can't imagine that people weren't just as stupid then. I mean, look, even the Revolutionary War didn't have that much support. I mean, it was like 10% or something like that at its highest.
Well,
so there was just a lot of people that did not want to break. And then you had a bunch of guys that were rich, and were like, you know what, we're going to do this anyway. So,
Well, the rank and file soldier wasn't rich.
no. But the rank and file soldier, they got behind him because people do that, but it still wasn't. It wasn't from a percentage standpoint. It just wasn't that much. 3%. That's where that comes from. But the guys that started it, Lincoln, Jefferson, Washington, Henry,
Lincoln.
all of them, like that. Not Lincoln. Sorry, I was looking at that at the note on the thing about Rushmore. So, but they were all wealthy people. Now some of them died poor as hell after that, but they were very committed to it.
Well, they pledged their fortunes and their sacred honor.
Right.
And that's something that I've said about our current thing. Everyone's like, it was time to boogaloo. It's time to boogaloo. Time to boogaloo. Not until the middle class and up get uncomfortable. The reason we had the Revolutionary War is because the rich guys were uncomfortable.
Well, and it's like Matt was saying. I mean, it was such a small segment of the population that actually led the charge, fought, crafted everything, did what needed to be done to establish an entire nation. But the other people weren't. I mean, yeah, there were people who were opponents to it, but they weren't actually standing in the way. They were just apathetic. You need a lot of apathy to what you're going to do because you can't fight on two fronts.
Well, most people, it's like people now. Most people at that time were just going about living their lives. They just want to be left alone.
Right.
If the rebels were walking through the field, just take what you need, just move along. And if the British were walking through the field, just take what you need, just move along, just leave my family alone. So yeah, there's a segment of that, but yeah, I wouldn't say that you're saying 10% were for it. I wouldn't say 90% were against, or else it wouldn't have happened.
No, they were just. I mean, it's kind of like we were talking about with the election in general. There's a large segment of people that just don't care.
Well, and you were talking about how it was a small. I don't think that people who. I don't know. If I'm judging based on what I know now of people and just watching how human nature is to sit back and let someone else do the heavy lifting, even in something as small as speaking up at a council meeting, you can find one citizen to do that usually, right? It's so small. But I think they didn't understand the magnitude of what had to be done in the undertaking. And that's what I worry about with this. Sure, even if you're going to rewrite it every 20, 30, 50 years, do people understand the impact of something like this? Because I would argue that most people don't understand the impact and the unintended consequences of an individual law. People have tunnel vision as to, well, this looks good to me right now, so what's the big deal? Just pass it.
Right.
Well, people also read the synopsis and they don't really understand what the bill does. And of course, the synopsis is written by the people who want the bill passed. So they understand a 30-second blurb on the news, but they don't understand that the ins and outs of what is actually happening.
Right.
But,
and it's I don't. Of course, we pass laws now that are 1,500 pages. We founded an entire country on far less than that. So,
yeah, you could sit down and read the Constitution.
Right. Yeah. On your lunch break.
To read a bill, you take that 1,500 page document and you split it up 5 ways, so everybody gets 300 pages to go through, and then they get together and say, well, this is what my 300 pages said. This is what my 300 pages said. Because you just can't digest it. Like Obamacare.
Right.
Obamacare was passed in the first 2 years of his presidency. That document has been sitting in someone's desk just waiting for a Democratic of the president and Congress. It was just it actually was old Hillary care from the 90s that never got thrown in a desk when the contract with America happened and Newt Gingrich took over as Speaker.
Right.
But so. Can you imagine a Constitution that comes out 1,500 pages and we don't and the Pelosi quote, we have to pass it to find out what's in it?
I guess I think it would require a bit of a shift in the mentality of, like, we're at a point now where people are like, oh, we're the richest nation on the planet, blah blah blah. We should be able to do things that take care of our own and whatever. And that wasn't even a thought process in the original writing. So, like, we'd have to get to it. Like, you'd have to approach it from the perspective that, we're rewriting this and doing it as a way to modify the workings of our country and what people expect. And yeah, I mean, look, while I think we should rewrite it, I won't say that I don't have some feelings of apprehension about how it might turn out.
Well, we do have a method to change the Constitution.
Right now, we do.
Absolutely.
Well, tell us about it, Dave.
Well, we were left with the ability to amend the Constitution. And of course, the first 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights. When they got done writing the Constitution, they looked at it and they said, "Well, we've created this monster. We created this government. Well, how do we protect our people? Or how are the people protected from this monster?" And they created the Bill of Rights, and they left in the ability to amend the Constitution. And let's just throw it to Matt. Matt, what is the process to amend the Constitution?
Congress would submit a proposed constitutional amendment to the states, and then it would have to be approved by a 2/3 vote of both houses, and then they would call a convention for proposing amendments with what's that called? An Article 5 convention?
Yes.
Convention of States. And I know, like, a couple of years ago, there was a whole big push for that, and I was kind of on board for that. That had to do with, I think it was balanced budget stuff, because our own state rep worked on the committee for that.
What you're talking about, though, is, and I know that we're going to distinguish this, but, like, when you call an Article 5 convention, you call it for a specific purpose, and that is the only thing they can address. And so it's not like, because there was always fear of a runaway convention but they're legal, like they don't follow any other boundaries we put in place, but they would only be permitted to discuss the balanced budget or term limits or whatever the reason was for calling it, which is why I think so many people were on board with it, because it was limited.
Right.
Well, it's like any other special session. You have a specific purpose, and that is exactly what you're supposed to do. And then, just like I have it in Georgia, they end up giving they get together for hurricane relief and give tax credits to an airline.
Right. But I guess in thinking about modifying the Constitution, do you think that kind of the way things are done now, the way we've seen things play out, that the Supreme Court really, in effect, modifies the Constitution?
Absolutely. I mean, they've nullified it in some points.
So
yeah, that's the theory that the Constitution is a living, breathing document.
And didn't they? I mean, they heard all those cases on the 18th Amendment about prohibition and everything, and I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. They do more damage to it, and amending the, I guess, application of it than anybody.
Right. But I guess
Which is a
damage
high
kind of
bar.
depends on your perspective.
Well, so someone's like, we need to put in the Constitution, we need a constitutional amendment about limiting Supreme Court justices. Okay, well, do it, but can't someone just change it? I mean, nothing is forever permanent. That's what people don't understand. Like, you can, so I guess it's not rewriting it every 20 year or, on an interim basis would not be too much different from what it is now. I guess, my question would be the logistics of it. Like, how long do you have to craft who does it? When do they do it? Where do they do it? What are their boundaries? And my biggest concern, of course, is do people understand that a constitution, at least in America, is supposed to limit the government and not the people?
Right.
Well, the Bill of Rights limits the government. The Constitution creates the government. It sets forth the separation of powers. It outlines who does what.
But under Matt's proposal, we wouldn't have a Bill of Rights, right?
I mean, it could get wiped.
Screw that.
So, yeah,
I ain't doing it.
If year 19 and a half, there's a school shooting, and then year 20 comes, all right, it's time to rewrite this sucker. Well, let's just throw out the Second Amendment. You don't have a right to keep and bear arms. Throw that out.
Do you think it would make more instability?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Would it create instability in marriage if you got to renegotiate your terms every 5 years? As is now, marriage is a death contract. Death or everything you own. But of course, it's going to create instability, but it also gives the idea that we just need to wait this out.
Is instability necessarily a bad thing, though?
Well, I mean, I guess it is if you're going back and forth between yes, I can have guns, no, I can't. Yes, I can, no, I can't. I mean, I don't want to be burying guns in the backyard every 20 years.
Wait, you don't do that?
No, I lost them all in a boating accident.
That's a lie. You don't get on boats.
I do, just not in the ocean. Freshwater. It was a freshwater boating accident.
It was a very nice boat. It was a Sea Ray. We were out on Lake Lanier, and whoops.
Yeah.
There they go.
I always giggle at that particular thing because I'm like, if you're at the point where you feel like you need to hide your guns, it's probably time to shoot.
Oh, I totally agree with that. But do you not? I mean, that's what I mean from the instability standpoint. Like, okay, you can't have guns. What happens? People are going to rise the hell up.
Right.
When's that start?
Noon today.
Now, as far as another constitutional amendment, I don't know if we will see one in our lifetime. I mean,
they can't agree on anything.
Well, in the numbers necessary, especially since everybody's team politics.
Right. Yeah. No, we're definitely split right down the middle. I mean, we're as close to 50-50 as you can get.
So, I mean, will you see a 28th Amendment? It would take something so radical. For instance, FDR spawned an amendment himself by continuing to run for re-election. Before that, it was common practice to follow what Washington did and stay in office for 2 terms. And after he died, they said, we need to go ahead and ink this on paper.
Right.
Because he's as close as we've had to a dictator. A dictator for life.
Yeah. Lucky for Georgia, we had Nathan Deal, who was like his minion. No one packed the court more than him. Heck, they just
Yeah, I mean,
created
everybody likes it.
positions.
Yeah, well, everybody likes it when their side does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old Nathan, let's make a deal.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know if we're going to see if we will see another change. And that's the same thing. If you were to try to create another constitution, it would be the same thing. You'd have to be ratified by the states.
Right.
So you could write a new constitution, and it would sit there split between the states for decades.
Well, and to be clear, that was the entire point. I mean, the founders and those who drafted all of our founding documents from the Declaration of Independence to this, like, they felt what they were doing was the best compromise and the best form of government. Like, everyone got a little bit of something. And it almost didn't happen. I mean, I don't know if you have how much history you've read, but I mean, it was like down to the wire. And this is what they came up with. So I think they were pretty adamant about making it difficult to change it. And I'm glad for that, because look at how volatile. I mean, they said don't have political parties, and they're like, okay, we're going to have some political parties, and look at where we are now. It's a disaster. Like, our lack of governance and efficiency is directly tied to the existence of political parties.
Well, lack of efficiency is a lot tied to the separation of powers being dissolved. Congress punting on their legislative authority and giving it over to the executive branch. You know, I use the example of the EPA a lot. They gave the EPA wide sweeping powers.
Yeah,
so they don't have to go past another law. EPA can just decide what they do. Same thing with the ATF. They just issue directives and reference a law that was passed 30 years ago and say, now this applies. They've given the executive branch, the entire idea after the revolution was to decentralize power. They never wanted the executive branch to have that much power. They just dealt with a king and a weak parliament. They just dealt with it. They wanted there to be three separate but equal branches. They wanted a legislative branch that was equal to the executive branch, not subservient to it. And it's one of the things that I really hate about watching congressional campaigns with I vote with the president, I vote against this president. Is you're supposed to be adversarial to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
Is the president should be coming to Congress asking permission to do something.
Right. And then you say, we will meet you here.
Right. One of the biggest problems with the wars we fought since the end of World War II is there was no declaration of war. Congress has the purse strings, and they could defund stuff just like they did the B-52 project in the 70s. They can defund stuff, but he should be going to Congress asking permission to go to war with somebody. Not go to war, then go back and say, oh, by the way, will you fund this? Now that we get troops on the ground, will you fund it?
No.
Yeah. Well, why do you hate our soldiers? Why do you want our soldiers to die?
Don't abandon them.
Yeah. I don't think it needs to be rewritten. It needs to be followed.
Right. Well, that was a point that I made when you were gone. Was a conversation with my dad. He asked when we would get back to the Constitution, and I was like, we were never really with it. You know, they were violating the Constitution before the ink was dry. And it all had to do with war, so.
It always does.
Right.
It always does. Is the use of force. And like I said, they did not want a strong central government. They did not want a strong. Actually, they didn't even want a strong standing army.
Right.
The idea in the 19th century was you could raise an army. that we didn't want, why we have a Bill of Rights to not quarter troops, is they didn't want giant standing armies. They wanted us to have the ability to defend ourselves, and that was it. It was not we weren't trying to be an offensive country. We're just trying. The idea was to live our lives and be separate from the king. But power corrupts.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, who in an era like now, because if amending it is so off the table that we all pretty much agree, I mean, I don't know what's coming down the pipeline that they could all agree on, but that kind of terrifies me too. The idea of them doing anything together at this point, because that's definitely not in our best interest. But if we were to just start fresh, who would rewrite it? Who would be responsible for that?
Like
Matt?
Optimally, or how I think it would play out?
Both.
Yes.
I think you would end up with a fair amount of current, like, constitutional scholars, from some of the, Yale and Harvard and Princeton, schools like that. I think they would probably ultimately be the ones to rewrite it. And I'm not sure that it would look a whole lot different than it does now. Other than, there would obviously be some heavy bias based on their own personal politics, but that's who I think would end up doing it. Who should do it? Me.
The anarchist.
Yes.
So your constitution would be like 3 lines long, and it would include public land.
Yeah.
Yes. It'd be one little. Look, man. Rothbard said we could have it. We were all allowed one statist idea.
Yeah, an anarchist writing the Constitution. That's a great idea.
That sounds fun, doesn't it? You do.
And
I
mean, I guess.
Well,
go ahead.
what would the process even look like?
Well, that's an interesting thing. Is, do you look at it from the, like, would it have to go through our current process, or do we just go, you know what, hey, we're going to rewrite this thing, so y'all are all fired, go home, thanks, see you later? Or would it be a thing where, like those other constitutional scholars get together, they come up with it, and then it has to go through our current legislative process, and it would absolutely get molested at that point?
I don't know, Matt. You're the one that wants to overthrow the government. I mean,
to say that I want to overthrow the government it's more of a thing where, like, if it happens, I'm pretty okay with it.
no, I know. So I guess, like, one of the questions I have at this point, and obviously anytime there's a new government, not a new government or a new form of government, you have to have this conversation. But first, you would have to decide the process, and then you'd have to do it. Because, like, how do you decide that our Constitution is null? Like, who decides that?
Right.
Step one. And holy hell. If people aren't fighting and shooting and raising up arms, then, like, might as well go ahead and write it, because everyone's just passive. Like, I would like there to be some resistance, right?
Or is it something where you pull the current document out every 20 years and say, all right, what do we want to change?
Right.
Scary.
It might not be a bad idea to just make it where, like, every law they have sunsets.
Yeah, I could support that. Then they'd have to read them. There'd be so many fewer because they'd have to read them to make sure that they actually want that one to
get re-upped.
We know that. Yeah, we know that Cortez and Green are probably not going to read it.
Well, no, Marjorie is too busy doing burpees in her hotel room.
Burpees. And Cortez is too busy dancing on rooftops. Which is an awesome video.
I haven't seen it. I need to go find
No?
it. She's hot.
Yeah. This was when she was in college too. It's just it was a video one of her friends was doing for, I guess, for a film class or something.
Right.
Yeah, it was there during the campaign. They were kind of banging on her about it. And I'm like, that's the coolest thing she's done. You know, the best thing about it in the entire video, she doesn't talk.
Right.
Now, if we could just get Marjorie Greene to do that, we'll be all right.
Take her Twitter.
Oh, yeah. There's a good amendment. No elected official can have Twitter
Or social media in general.
Unless it's to merely they could have one, but they could only post a vote.
Right.
Marjorie voted for HB whenever.
Well, that's that'd be her office having it for relating news. But give up your same thing for the president. Good God. I mean, we wouldn't even be in the mess we've been in for the last month if Trump didn't have Twitter.
Right. Of course, he might not have got elected either.
Well, that's true. I said, I think the first time I came on the show, I wish that there was an adult in the room that would just take the phone away from him and go, no, sir. No, we're not going to type that. No, sir.
Right.
Just drink some warm milk and go back to bed.
We're done here.
Yeah, you've got a supermodel wife. Go sleep next to her. Put the damn phone down. So, according to the outline, this is a pretty good question that was written for me by the brains of the operation. Why?
Why do it?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of with Jefferson on that as far as living under the law of the previous generation. Of course, there's other ways to rectify that. We just talked about sunsetting every law, make them redo it.
Which I think that's probably the smartest thing that's ever come out of your mouth.
Second.
Motion carries.
Yeah.
2 and 1.
No, I mean, there is no law that has been put into place that shouldn't be revisited. Like, nothing should be permanent in terms of, because every law restricts the people.
Every law is enforced at the barrel of a gun.
Yep.
And in my opinion, you can argue about that you can't legislate ethics and morality all day long, and I totally agree. But in terms of, matters of laws that have been put in place to regulate local governments and the state government, like whether it be about SPLOST or, sunshine law and all that, like, in my opinion, that should be a constitutional thing. Aside from whether if you're updating it all the time, talking about revisiting laws, like, the things that regulate government should be. They just should be. It's because government should be restricted. Like, we should absolutely put the chokehold on them and make them show us that they need that privilege or power. But the people, why should we have to make the case that we shouldn't be governed and over-governed?
Well, that was the best thing about the assault weapons ban in the 90s. It had a sundown. It was an absurd law anyway.
Right.
It didn't actually ban anything that was useful. It banned bayonet lugs because of all those drive-by bayonettings. But that was the best thing about that. I think that's the only thing that got that law passed. Was the sundown on it, and you just waited it out, and it happened to sundown when W was in the White House, and that was a non-starter.
Right.
So that's that. But yeah, that's a great idea. Wouldn't you love to see the debates come up on the sundown on the income tax?
Oh my God, I would love that. I think that they should have to revisit that one like every 2 years.
Well, here's the thing. It would depend on who's in the White House. If Republicans hold it, you see Republicans banging their desks saying, we have to have it to fund our government. If Democrats were in power, Republicans would be banging their desks. We can't be stealing the products of the people.
Right.
It would be. I mean, just from a comedic observer standpoint, it'd be hilarious to watch them switch places like square dancers.
Right. Yeah, they might not have a whole lot of time to get anything else done if they're constantly having to revisit that one.
Yeah, every 30 days. Every 30 days you have to reauthorize the IRS. but as far as
April 14th, reauthorize the IRS.
Yeah.
Or the 16th when everyone's good and pissed.
Yeah. Well, nobody's pissed anymore. Withholding has changed that because people don't even understand how much tax they pay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I have to write a check every April.
Yeah.
And I do it on April 15th or whenever tax day is, whenever it falls. I do it on April 15th. And every year I say the same damn thing. You should have to pay your taxes the first Monday of November. Because you should go into Election Day pissed.
Right.
It's so true. Like, you say that, and I know that you believe it, and there's probably some people who think it would be for dramatic effect as well. But I have complained at length about my health insurance options down here and how the regulation at the national and state level has run out every private insurer in Bullitt County unless you work for the government. We don't have any. And like the Sunday before the election, of course I had early voted, but because of everything this year, but the Sunday before the election, I went on the healthcare.gov site to see what my options were, and there was nothing, and I was pissed. I mean, livid. And if people had to make important life decisions right before they voted, or they had to know that they either don't have health insurance or they're going to have to go, and it's not because I can't afford it, it's not because I literally don't have any options because the government ruined it. It's the same thing as the tax situation. Like, people should have to address these things right before they vote instead of spreading it out and acting like, oh, well, it's not that bad.
Well, it goes into the mindset. And look, I'm not banging on anybody who works a 9 to 5. But when you put it in your head that I make $100,000 a year, which means I take home. That's the thing. Is like I take home this much, and it's in the mindset. And then people act like their fairy godmother gave them a present every February and March when they get their tax returns. And there are industries dedicated to getting part of that tax return from you. Why does Walmart stock up on TVs that time of year? Because people run around like idiots, like school kids that have been given a $5 bill and sent to the dollar store to go buy whatever they want.
And you want them to rewrite the Constitution.
Right. These are the people that vote.
But yeah, people who can't properly fill out an absentee ballot and don't properly follow the instructions and then claim that the government is suppressing them, you want them to play a part in deciding how we're governed.
I mean, at least they've got skin in the game.
Well, Carlin said it best. Think about the average person and how dumb that guy is, and realize that half the population is dumber.
Right.
So, and you're right. That's never been a thing. But in the 19th century, those folks didn't generally vote. There was no get out the vote or anything else. It was the political elites were the ones who inked it. The thinkers. Jefferson was literally a genius.
Right.
Able to write simultaneously with both hands. Penned beautiful letters. Kept an enormous library that he donated and then ended up building another library. These guys were very, very, very smart. And these were the intellectuals of the day that came up with it. And those were the people that were making. They didn't always agree. I mean, even between he and Adams, they didn't necessarily agree, but they were both highly intelligent with different views on government. And what we have now are damn influencers that are running for office. Those are the people that are writing our laws, are voting on our laws. They don't write a damn thing. I don't know if some of these legislators can write their own damn names.
Right.
Just come here, Senator. Put your X right here. Okay.
Oh my God, we're so screwed.
This is a good time to remind everybody, these are our opinions. And not necessarily those of All on Georgia. And certainly not those of any All on Georgia reporter not offering commentary on this very show.
So I actually asked people if they supported changing the Constitution or rewriting it, not changing it, but if they supported, and of course some people didn't listen to what I asked, which was, do you support rewriting it? Some of them just offered what they would want to change, and I guess that's a fair thing to say because you might take everything we have, put it in a new document, and then add things, so I'll give them a pass. But anyway, and this is partially because of my friend base and who follows me on social media, but a lot of people said no, that they don't support changing it at all because the risk outweighs a possible reward. But some people had some decent ideas. And then, of course, there were the cynics, most of whom are with the Libertarian Party, who were like, they don't follow it anyway. What's the point? Touche. We're trying to have a conversation here, though. So
you fit right in here.
Yeah, we agree. You're not wrong. However, so I don't know how you want to work through some of these, but it was diverse, even though I have a very limited pool of people in terms of America.
No, you don't. I mean, you tend to have people that follow you from every portion of the spectrum. I mean, you're friends with people who are anti-capitalist, all the way up to anarchists. So you have a very wide spectrum of people who follow you, people who are your friends, who you genuinely like that you can disagree with on stuff. I mean, you have a pretty wide following. I don't know how many soccer moms follow you, and apparently that's what elections come down to.
Yeah, a few, but well, also, I mean, it doesn't really matter who votes because the elections office they just guesstimate. This feels like 50 votes. So
but we just let the major media channels just go ahead and declare a winner.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Anyway, so Doug Deal said, he had a longer response about the process and his concerns and stuff, but he was talking about how ratification now, he's not afraid of a convention, which I think we were talking about how difficult it is, but he said he would rather have a mechanism where the Constitution can be changed with difficulty than be in a situation where it's virtually impossible, so people just ignore it. So, I guess he thinks it is too difficult now. At a constitutional convention, and like Matt said about the courts, that he's a lot more afraid of the Supreme Court than what a bunch of states could gather and do. Which is true because they're not elected either, the justices.
Right.
Well, and they can change the definition of words.
And they do.
Right. And find rights that I can't, things I can't find in the Constitution anywhere, you have a right to. Especially when people start talking about right to health care. No. I mean, you have the right to purchase it. So yeah, that's Doug Deal. That's a very good point. That the Supreme Court is much scarier than a constitutional convention. But again, it doesn't matter what they come out with the Constitutional Convention come out with. The Supreme Court's going to interpret it any way they damn want to.
Right.
Based on the ideology of whoever appoints them. Well, with the exception of Justice Roberts, who changes his ideology based on, I don't know, the weather that day.
Allegedly.
Again, Justice Roberts, please stop using my last name.
Yeah.
Vega Man said nothing wrong with being able to amend the Constitution as needed. It shouldn't be a regular thing, and it really should address only the most important issues. All laws in the books should have an expiration at sundown, like we talked about, and be renewed periodically. That's you do have some folks that can actually express thoughts, and that is what makes this audience the best audience in podcasting.
Well, duh. And they're smarter because they listen.
I don't know. I think I probably pull their IQ down a couple points every week they listen to me.
Not 2 weeks
Right?
ago you didn't, though. They got a little
There
smarter.
Yes. There was a lot of support and commentary on term limits, which, I mean, people tend to support, even people who don't want it to be a constitutional amendment, like they like people who self-declare term limits or impose them on themselves. I mean, that is something that it crosses party lines. So I'm not surprised by that.
It does. It absolutely does cross party lines. But it's always the other guy they want out. It's the folks down here want Nancy Pelosi out. She's been there too long. The other side would have said the same thing about John McCain. Of course, I say the same thing about John McCain. He should have been out of the Senate long before he died. But we always say it about the other guy. We never say it about our guy.
Right. Vote the bums out. Everyone but mine.
Well, it goes to the approval rating of Congress. Approval rating of Congress is always super, super low. But when you look at the individual districts' approval rating of their congressperson is high.
Right.
So you hate Congress, but you tend to love your congressman.
Right. I think lawyers are like that too.
Yeah. Kill all the lawyers, kill them tonight. Except for my guy.
Right.
My guy's all right. He takes care
my
of
guy's good.
Yeah, kill all the lawyers, kill them tonight. Except for Catherine Bernard.
Well,
Right.
obviously.
Who is
Wicked smart.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shane Harper suggested criminal consequences being added for when government officials violate the Constitution.
I don't know if that's the role of the Constitution. You could do that with just a law.
Yeah, but they're not going to pass that.
Well, the thing about putting it in the Constitution, though, is that if somebody doesn't impose the criminal punishments, then they're also guilty of a constitutional violation, and it's just a domino. Like, everyone would be in jail.
Sounds good to me.
Right.
Right to jail.
Actually, I read a book one time that was about that, where the president basically kidnapped Congress and put them in a room, made them get some things right, and then pass some laws about, if they violated these things in the future or even in the past, like it was a retroactive thing, and they went to jail. And he did that knowing that he would serve time because of the things that he had done. It was an interesting book. It's great mental masturbation, but
Well, yeah. You're not going to get even a constitutional convention that they're not going to put that in because they're the ones serving.
right.
And there's nobody that a congressman serves better than himself.
Mic drop.
Talk about constituent services.
Yeah.
Former Agricultural Commissioner candidate Fred Swan. Yes, it should. We regularly update our software because of finding of previous mistakes to remove unintended exploits. We act like Jefferson walked down Mount Rushmore with the Constitution etched in stone tablets or something. Nice.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a little loose to compare it to software for technology. I mean, individuals and technology and like life has evolved, the world has evolved and I guess advanced, but government is still government, prone to corruption, and this system was set in place to be the best.
Right.
And there are flaws, but it's still, well, the Republic.
I don't think there are flaws to the framework.
No, I think the framework's probably is
sound.
largely based in natural law.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the framework, the balancing of power, the decentralizing of power, making sure that each branch is equal, making sure that we don't have an emperor, we don't have a king. We don't govern by fiat.
You know, though, frankly, I'm not sure that I would be opposed to a monarchy.
What?
Well, so look, hear me out. Right now, to get anything done, you gotta. There's 535 members of Congress, and then you got a president and a bunch of judges, right? Like that's a lot of minds to change. If you get something done under a monarchy, you just got to change one.
Well, the going theory is for libertarians, the most efficient form of government is a benevolent dictator.
Right.
But benevolence is hard to maintain. Because power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right. But I mean, you know, we kicked off this whole thing over a 3% tax on a breakfast beverage.
Yeah, and look at us now. We're like,
right.
Please, can I have some more?
we traded that for this. I'd like to go back to a 3% tax on tea, thank you.
What if it's on beer?
I'm okay with that too.
Or ammo?
I'm with you.
No,
Good Lord,
no, easy now.
We've already got taxes on ammo.
Well, that's true.
I mean, there's 11% excise tax on that funds conservation.
That's a little oversimplification of it. With the tax, it was several taxes, including stamp tax on every piece of paper. It was the lack of representation that Parliament wouldn't seat anybody from the colonies.
Right.
If they felt like they had buy-in, and it's one of the things that keeps us together is we think we have buy-in. Every 2 years we go to the polls. Every 4 years we elect a president.
Right. I mean, do you
feel
feel
like
represented now?
Well, hell no. I do at the state level.
Yeah, but that
absolutely.
that is a unique situation because you have a quality relationship with the people who not only represent you but your area.
Well, it's because it's because I got involved.
Sure.
Right, you sought it out.
But that is why you feel represented.
Board.
You can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I got to talk to you about this. Can you hear me out?" And because representation does not mean, that's what people don't understand. Representation doesn't always equate to your values being represented. It means that you had an active role in the process.
Right. But it's because I take an active role. It's not that I was born with access to local reps. It's that it's the same thing when I got appointed to my unconstitutional board. Connie said, "What the F qualifies you for that?" And I said, "I show up." And so many people won't show up and participate in their government.
Right.
And that's basically, I'm not qualified to sit on that board. Other than I show up. And I'm willing to sit and listen. Yeah, I mean, same thing with Lowe. Actually, Lowe's more qualified for his board than I am. He's done more in construction, been in construction development and all that stuff. Lowe's actually somewhat educated, despite how he sounds on this show. Well, we need to. We did to get some. You got some great responses. We can't go through all of them. Thank you to everybody who responded to Jessica's query on Facebook. It really was a good discussion. Let's get to closing thoughts. Matt, since you're now a guest, how about you go first?
Man, it's Thanksgiving. I'm just ready to go hunting. I'll have my dining room renovation project behind me, and I'm going to disappear into the woods for a while.
And we are all thankful for that. Jessica.
Most notably, my wife.
Yeah, tell her I'll be over soon.
Yeah. Knock out that power bill.
Jess.
I don't really have any closing thoughts other than, I just hope that people take time to, I guess everything that's going on is extremely important, but I hope people take time for Christmas and New Year's this year and like get into the groove and the feeling and as best they can with the world the way it is, because 2020 has been a long ass year.
Yeah, it has. It's
And
funny you bring that up. My wife, I've always been that, you wait till after Thanksgiving to get the Christmas stuff done. And she told me like 2 weeks ago that she wanted to start decorating for Christmas. And I'm like, you know what? Given the way that everything is, I think everybody could go for a heavy dose of Christmas spirit. So go
true.
wild.
I know so many people who aren't like your traditional early decorators. They're not. They'll wait until, the weekend after Thanksgiving or just before that. And I think a lot of people this year were just like, we really need something cheerful to focus on. So let's put the tree up and just be happy for a few minutes.
Right. We're here anyway.
Yeah, right.
Well, Matt, I think Martha's thing is more the pride of the new house. It is a beautiful new house.
Thank you.
And you have a beautiful front doors that will look great with a Christmas tree right in your foyer. The way Matt's house faces, you have to face Matt's house as you come into the neighborhood because he's right on a corner. So that'd be great. My closing thought, opposed to you two, is as the show drops, I have two closing thoughts. One, happy birthday to my wonderful wife.
Yay!
Happy birthday,
it is
Connie.
her birthday. Yeah, she kind of gets brushed over because it's right after Thanksgiving and right into Christmas season. But happy birthday to my wife. And now that it is after Thanksgiving, as the show drops, you may now decorate for Christmas.
Don't let Dave tell you what to do. You can do it whenever you want.
Well, I don't like seeing skeletons and baby Jesus on the same shelf.
Well, it's not your problem. Don't go shopping then. Stay home.
Oh God, I try. Oh God, do I hate the public?
You have to this year.
Oh yeah, exactly.
When
wife
this
is all over, please.
Pissed about the whole Black Friday thing because she normally does that.
No, thank you. But as we're about to run long, thank you very much for listening. For Matt Lowe, our special returning guest, for Jessica Szilagyi, for Eric Cumby, our editor, for Big Daddy Unlimited, our sponsor, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.